Welcome to Dream Tales Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is The Neighborhood Watch. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle 528 Hz melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. The Neighborhood Watch begins now, and when the story's final line is faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. The Neighborhood Watch. Sarah Martinez stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the unfamiliar street below. Moving boxes were still scattered around her room, and she hadn't unpacked most of her belongings yet. 3 weeks had passed since her family relocated to Maplewood Avenue, but she still felt like a stranger in this quiet, suburban neighborhood. At 17, Sarah had always been shy, preferring books to social gatherings. Leaving her old school and friends behind had been harder than she expected. Her parents seemed to adapt quickly to their new life, but Sarah found herself spending most afternoons alone in her room, wondering if she would ever feel at home here. The neighborhood was different from her previous one. Instead of apartment buildings, there were rows of single-family houses with well-maintained gardens and white picket fences. Every morning, she watched her neighbors leave for work and children walk to the nearby elementary school. Everyone seemed to know each other, waving and chatting as they passed by. Sarah's mother, Mrs. Martinez, had been encouraging her to explore the neighborhood and meet new people. "You can't make friends by staying in your room all day," she would say during dinner. But Sarah felt nervous about approaching strangers, especially adults who seemed so different from her. One afternoon, while walking to the corner store to buy some school supplies, Sarah noticed an elderly woman struggling to carry several heavy grocery bags from her car to her front door. The woman appeared to be in her 70s, with silver hair and a gentle face. She was moving slowly, stopping every few steps to rest. Sarah's instincts told her to help, but her shyness held her back. She watched from across the street as the woman continued to struggle with her bags. Finally, Sarah's conscience won over her fear, and she crossed the street. "Excuse me," Sarah said quietly, approaching the woman. "Would you like some help with those bags?" The elderly woman looked up with surprise and relief. "Oh, that would be wonderful, dear. Thank you so much. I'm Mrs. Chen, and I live right here in the blue house." Sarah introduced herself and took the heaviest bags from Mrs. Chen's hands. As they walked up the driveway together, Mrs. Chen asked about Sarah's family and how they were settling into the neighborhood. "We moved here 3 weeks ago," Sarah explained. "I'm still getting used to everything being so different." Mrs. Chen smiled warmly. "Change can be difficult, especially when you're young. But this is a wonderful neighborhood with many kind people. You'll see." After helping Mrs. Chen carry her groceries inside, Sarah was invited to sit in the living room for a cup of tea. The house was cozy and filled with family photographs and beautiful plants. Mrs. Chen told Sarah about her late husband, who had been a schoolteacher, and her 2 grown children who lived in other states. "I've been living here for 42 years, Mrs. Chen said, pouring hot tea into delicate china cups. "I've watched this neighborhood grow and change, and I've seen many young families come and go. Each person brings something special to our community." Sarah found herself relaxing in Mrs. Chen's presence. The older woman was a good listener and asked thoughtful questions about Sarah's interests and hobbies. When Sarah mentioned her love for reading, Mrs. Chen's eyes lit up. "I have hundreds of books that I've collected over the years," Mrs. Chen said excitedly. "You're welcome to borrow any of them whenever you'd like. It would make me happy to know they're being enjoyed again." Before leaving, Sarah promised to visit again soon. As she walked home, she felt lighter somehow, as if a small weight had been lifted from her shoulders. That evening, she told her parents about meeting Mrs. Chen and how kind she had been. "See, I told you the people here would be friendly," her mother said with a knowing smile. "Sometimes you just need to take the first step." The next day after school, Sarah decided to stop by Mrs. Chen's house again. This time, she brought a small bouquet of flowers from her family's garden as a thank you gift. Mrs. Chen was delighted and invited Sarah to help her tend to her vegetable garden in the backyard. "I grow tomatoes, lettuce, and herbs," Mrs. Chen explained as they worked together in the afternoon sun. "Gardening has always been my therapy. There's something magical about helping things grow." As they weeded and watered the plants, Mrs. Chen shared stories about the neighborhood's history and the various families who lived on their street. Sarah learned about Mr. Peterson, the retired firefighter who lived 2 houses down, and the Johnson family, who had 3 young children and often organized block parties. Mrs. Rodriguez, across the street, is an excellent baker, Mrs. Chen continued. "She makes the most delicious cookies and often shares them with neighbors. And the Thompson family next door to you has a teenage son named David who goes to the same high school as you." Sarah was surprised to learn there was another teenager living so close by. She had been so focused on feeling like an outsider that she hadn't noticed the details of her immediate surroundings. Over the following week, Sarah developed a routine of visiting Mrs. Chen every day after school. They would work in the garden, share stories, and sometimes just sit on the back porch, drinking lemonade and watching the birds. Sarah began to feel more confident and comfortable in her new environment. One afternoon, while Sarah and Mrs. Chen were in the front yard planting new flowers, Mr. Peterson from down the street approached them. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a friendly smile and graying beard. "Good afternoon, ladies," he said, tipping his baseball cap. "Those flowers look beautiful." Mrs. Chen, your garden always makes the whole street look better. Mrs. Chen introduced Sarah to Mr. Peterson, explaining that she was new to the neighborhood. Mr. Peterson welcomed Sarah warmly and told her about some of the neighborhood activities. We have a community meeting once a month at the community center, Mr. Peterson explained, and every summer we organize a neighborhood barbecue in Riverside Park. It's a great way for everyone to get together and catch up. Sarah listened with interest as Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Chen discussed upcoming community events. She was beginning to understand that this neighborhood was more than just a collection of houses. It was a real community where people cared about each other. The next day, Mrs. Chen suggested that Sarah might enjoy meeting Mrs. Rodriguez, the baker she had mentioned earlier. She's about your mother's age and has a daughter in college, Mrs. Chen said. I think you'd like her. With Mrs. Chen's encouragement, Sarah crossed the street and knocked on Mrs. Rodriguez's door. A warm, energetic woman answered, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. You must be Sarah, Mrs. Rodriguez exclaimed, before Sarah could even introduce herself. Mrs. Chen told me all about you. I'm so glad to finally meet you. Please come in. The Rodriguez house smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon. Mrs. Rodriguez led Sarah into the kitchen, where she was in the middle of baking a batch of chocolate chip cookies. She invited Sarah to help her finish preparing the dough. I love to bake, Mrs. Rodriguez explained as they worked together. It reminds me of cooking with my grandmother when I was your age. She taught me that food is one of the best ways to bring people together and show them you care. As the cookies baked in the oven, Mrs. Rodriguez told Sarah about her family and asked about Sarah's adjustment to the new neighborhood. She was impressed to hear about Sarah's friendship with Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen is such a treasure, Mrs. Rodriguez said. She's been like a grandmother to many of us on this street. She has so much wisdom and always knows just what to say when someone needs encouragement. When the cookies were ready, Mrs. Rodriguez packed a dozen in a container for Sarah to take home to her family. She also gave Sarah an extra batch to share with Mrs. Chen. This is how we do things in this neighborhood, Mrs. Rodriguez said with a smile. We look out for each other and share what we have. That evening, Sarah's family enjoyed the homemade cookies while Sarah told them about her afternoon with Mrs. Rodriguez. Her parents were pleased to see their daughter becoming more involved with their new community. You seem much happier lately, her father observed. This neighborhood is good for you. Sarah realized he was right. The anxiety and loneliness she had felt since moving were gradually being replaced by a sense of belonging and purpose. The following week, Mrs. Chen asked Sarah if she would be interested in helping her with a special project. The local elementary school was organizing a reading program for young students, and Mrs. Chen had volunteered to help coordinate it. They need older students to read stories to the children, Mrs. Chen explained. I thought you might enjoy it. Given your love for books, it would only be one afternoon a week. Sarah was initially nervous about the idea of reading to a group of children she didn't know, but Mrs. Chen's confidence in her abilities was encouraging. After thinking about it overnight, Sarah agreed to participate. The elementary school was only a few blocks away from their neighborhood. When Sarah arrived for her first session, she was greeted by Mrs. Henderson, the school librarian, who showed her to a cozy reading corner filled with colorful cushions and children's books. The children are so excited to have teenage volunteers, Mrs. Henderson said. They look up to students like you and are always eager to hear stories. Sarah's first group consisted of 6 children between the ages of 6 and 8. They gathered around her in a semicircle, their faces full of anticipation. Sarah had chosen a picture book about a young girl who overcomes her fear of speaking in public, a story that resonated with her own recent experiences. As Sarah read, she found herself getting caught up in the story and using different voices for each character. The children giggled and asked questions, completely absorbed in the tale. When she finished, they clapped enthusiastically and begged her to read another story. "Will you come back next week?" asked a little girl named Emma. "I want to hear more stories." Sarah promised she would return, and she left the school feeling energized and proud of herself. She had never imagined that she would enjoy working with children so much. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's weekly reading sessions became one of her favorite activities. She looked forward to seeing the children and sharing new stories with them. The experience was helping her build confidence in speaking in front of others and connecting with people of different ages. Mrs. Chen was delighted to hear about Sarah's success with the reading program. "You have a natural gift for working with children," she told Sarah one afternoon as they worked in the garden. "Have you ever considered becoming a teacher?" The suggestion surprised Sarah. She had never seriously thought about her future career, but the idea of teaching appealed to her. She enjoyed learning and had always been patient with younger students who needed help with their schoolwork. One evening, while Sarah was having dinner with her parents, she mentioned Mrs. Chen's suggestion about teaching as a career option. "That's an interesting idea," her mother said thoughtfully. "You've always been good at explaining things to others, and you clearly enjoy working with the children at the school." Her father nodded in agreement. "The most important thing is that you find something you're passionate about. It sounds like you're discovering new interests and talents through your involvement in this neighborhood." As autumn approached, Sarah realized how much her life had changed since moving to Maplewood Avenue. She no longer felt like an outsider looking in. Instead, she had become an active member of a caring community. The neighborhood's monthly community meeting was approaching, and Mrs. Chen encouraged Sarah to attend. "It's a great opportunity to meet more of your neighbors and learn about upcoming events," she said. Sarah was nervous about attending a meeting full of adults, but her experiences over the past few months had taught her that most people were kind and welcoming if you gave them the chance. The community center was filled with about 30 residents of various ages. Mr. Peterson was leading the meeting. discussing topics like street maintenance, upcoming holiday decorations, and the organization of the annual neighborhood barbecue. During the meeting, Mrs. Chen stood up and introduced Sarah to the group. "I'd like everyone to meet Sarah Martinez," she said. "She moved to our neighborhood a few months ago and has already become a valuable member of our community. She's been volunteering at the elementary school reading program and helping several of us with various tasks around our homes." The room erupted in warm applause, and several people approached Sarah after the meeting to introduce themselves and welcome her to the neighborhood. She met the Johnson family with their 3 young children, the Thompson family from next door, and many other neighbors she had only seen in passing. David Thompson, the teenage boy Mrs. Chen, had to bask in it. And David Thompson stood up and introduced Sarah to the group. She met the Johnson family with their 3 young children, the Thompson family from next door, and many other neighbors she had only seen in passing. David Thompson, the teenage boy Mrs. Chen, had to bask in it. Before the meeting, Mrs. Chen stood up and introduced Sarah to the group. "I'd like everyone to meet Sarah Martinez," she said. "She moved to our neighborhood a few months ago and has already become a valuable member of our community. She met the Johnson family with their 3 young children, the Thompson family from next door, and many other neighbors Chen had mentioned, introduced himself, and mentioned that he had noticed Sarah walking to school. "I've been wondering when I'd get a chance to meet you," he said with a friendly smile. "Maybe we could walk to school together sometime." Sarah was pleased to finally meet someone her own age in the neighborhood. David seemed nice and easy to talk to, and she looked forward to getting to know him better. As the weeks passed, Sarah's circle of friends and activities continued to grow. She and David became good friends, often walking to school together and studying for tests. She maintained her close friendship with Mrs. Chen, visiting her regularly and helping with household tasks and gardening. Mrs. Rodriguez became like a second mother to Sarah, teaching her new recipes and always having a warm meal ready when Sarah's parents were working late. Mr. Peterson would wave to her every morning and sometimes asked for her help with small community projects. The annual neighborhood barbecue was scheduled for the last weekend in October, and Sarah volunteered to help with the organization. She worked with Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Rodriguez to coordinate food donations and helped Mr. Peterson set up tables and decorations in Riverside Park. On the day of the barbecue, Sarah arrived early to help with the final preparations. She was amazed to see how many neighbors attended the event. Families with children, elderly couples, teenagers, and single adults all came together to share food and conversation. Sarah found herself moving easily between different groups, introducing newcomers to longtime residents and helping to serve food to the children. She realized that she had become one of the neighborhood connectors, someone who helped bring people together. During the barbecue, Mr. Peterson made a short speech thanking all the volunteers who had helped organize the event. He specifically mentioned Sarah's contributions and how quickly she had become an integral part of their community. "Sarah is a perfect example of what makes our neighborhood special," he said. "She shows us that it doesn't matter how long you've lived here. What matters is your willingness to care about your neighbors and contribute to our shared community." As Sarah listened to Mr. Peterson's words, she felt a deep sense of pride and belonging. 6 months ago, she had been a frightened and lonely teenager, worried about fitting into a new place. Now she was surrounded by people who cared about her and whom she cared about in return. That evening, as Sarah helped clean up after the barbecue, Mrs. Chen pulled her aside for a private conversation. "I want you to know how proud I am of the young woman you've become," Mrs. Chen said, her eyes glistening with emotion. "When I first met you, you were so shy and uncertain. But you had kindness in your heart, and that's the most important quality anyone can have." Sarah hugged Mrs. Chen tightly, feeling grateful for the older woman's friendship and guidance. "Thank you for believing in me and helping me find my place here," Sarah said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Mrs. Chen smiled. "You would have found your way eventually, dear. You have everything you need inside yourself. Sometimes we just need someone to help us see it." As autumn turned to winter, Sarah continued to thrive her new environment. Her grades at school improved as she became more confident and engaged. She joined the school's volunteer club and helped organize several community service projects. The reading program at the elementary school expanded, and Sarah was asked to train new teenage volunteers. She discovered that she enjoyed teaching others and helping them develop their own skills and confidence. During the holiday season, the neighborhood came together again for various celebrations. Sarah helped organize a holiday food drive, coordinated caroling for elderly residents, and assisted with decorating the community center. One snowy December evening, as Sarah was walking home from Mrs. Chen's house, she paused to look at her neighborhood with fresh eyes. The houses were decorated with warm lights, and she could see families gathered around dinner tables through lit windows. Children were building snowmen in front yards, and neighbors were helping each other shovel driveways. This was home, not just the house where her family lived, but the entire community that had embraced her and helped her grow into the person she was becoming. She had learned that a neighborhood was much more than a collection of houses. It was a network of relationships, a place where people looked out for each other and shared both joys and challenges. Sarah realized that her shyness hadn't completely disappeared, but it no longer controlled her life. She had learned that most people were kind and welcoming if you approached them with an open heart. More importantly, she had discovered that she had something valuable to offer others: her time, her energy, her caring, and her growing confidence. As she reached her front door, Sarah could hear her parents talking and laughing in the kitchen. She smiled, knowing that they too had found their place in this community. The decision to move to Maplewood Avenue, which had seemed so frightening at first, had turned out to be one of the best things that had ever happened to their family. That night, as Sarah got ready for bed, she looked out her bedroom window at the same street she had viewed with anxiety and uncertainty just months before. Now she saw familiar houses filled with friends and neighbors who cared about her. She saw Mrs. Chen's house with its beautiful garden, Mrs. Rodriguez's welcoming kitchen, Mr. Peterson's well-maintained yard, and the Thompson house where her friend David lived. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to connect with people, to help others, and to continue growing as a member of this special community. Sarah had learned that the secret to belonging wasn't about how long you had lived somewhere or how well you knew every person. It was about being willing to reach out, to care about others, and to contribute to something larger than yourself. The neighborhood watch that had begun as one shy teenager helping an elderly woman with her groceries had grown into a network of mutual care and support that enriched everyone's lives. Sarah had not only found her place in the community, she had helped strengthen the community itself. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah felt grateful for the courage she had found to cross the street that first afternoon and offer help to Mrs. Chen. That single act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed her life and helped her discover who she truly was and who she could become. The neighborhood watch continued, with Sarah now playing an active role in looking out for others, just as others had looked out for her when she needed it most.
you